Hello students, my name is Jatin Dewan and in this lesson we are going to be studying about ecosystems. So the interaction between the living organism and the non-living environment is called as ecosystem. There are several things which are important for the structure and function. It includes the interaction of biotic and abiotic components resulting to form a physical structure that is a characteristic type of ecosystem. Identification and description of plants and animal species of an ecosystem give its species composition. Vertical distribution of different species occupying different levels is called stratification. The components are productivity, decomposition, energy flow, nutrient cycle. Productivity is further of four types: primary, gross, net, and secondary. Primary productivity would include the amount of biomass or organic matter produced per unit area over a period of time by plants during photosynthesis. Growth primary productivity would be defined as the rate of production of organic matter during photosynthesis. Net primary product is a considerable amount of energy which is being utilized by plants in respiration. Secondary productivity shall be defined as the rate of formation of new organic matter by the consumer. Then decomposition. The decomposers break down complex organic matter into inorganic matter like carbon dioxide, water, and nutrients. The process includes the following steps: fragmentation, leaching, catabolism, and humidification. So, fragmentation is the breakdown of detritus, that is, the dead plant remains, into smaller particles by detritivore, that is, the earthworm. Leaching would mean the water soluble inorganic nutrients go slow into the soil horizon and get precipitated as unavailable salts. Catabolism would mean the bacterial and fungal enzymes degrade detritus into simple inorganic substances. And humidification would mean accumulation of dark colored amorphous substances called humus. This is the energy flow in ecosystem. So energy flow is also told as the 10 joule law in the earlier stages, in the earlier grades. So energy flow in an ecosystem, except for deep sea hydrothermal ecosystem, sun is the only source of energy for all ecosystems on earth. Less than 50% of the incident solar radiation is photosynthetically active radiations, which is also known as PAR. Plants capture 2 to 10% PAR and use that for photosynthesis. All organisms depend on producers either directly or indirectly. Energy flow in the ecosystem is unidirectional, that is, energy transfer from producer to the consumer. Energy transfer is not absolute and spontaneous. Unless energy is degraded, it cannot be transferred. When energy transferred from one trophic level to the other, a lot of energy is lost in the form of heat to the environment. Only 10% of the energy is transferred from one trophic level to the other. So every level just receives 10%. Next topic, food chain. So grazing food chain is the production of food which extends from producers through herbivores to carnivores. Detritus food chain begins with dead organic matter and passes through detritus feeding organism and soil to organisms feeding on detritus feeders. Then food chains are interconnected through each other and also called as food web. So food chains combine together to form a food web. And then trophic level would mean a group of organisms irrespective of their size and having the same source of energy or similar food habit constituting into a trophic level. Ecological pyramid. The base of pyramid is broad and it narrows down at the apex. The similar shape is obtained when food or energy relationship between organisms at different trophic level. The relationship can be expressed in number of ways of number, energy, and biomass. The base of pyramid represented by producer and apex is the top consumer. Other trophic levels are in between. If you see here, the top consumers are here at the apex. Then in most ecosystem, all the pyramids of number of energy and biomass are upright. and the pyramid of number in a tree ecosystem is inverted. The pyramid of biomass in sea is also inverted because the biomass of fishes is far exceeding than that of phytoplankton. Pyramid of energy is always upright, that can never be inverted, because when energy flows from a particular trophic level to the other one, some energy is always lost as heat at each step. There are several limitations to the ecological pyramids, like it does not take into account the same species belonging to two or more trophic level. It assumes a simple food chain. It never exits in nature. It does not accommodate food web, and saprophytes are not given place in the ecological pyramids. This is the ecological succession. The gradual and fairly predictable change in the species composition of a given area is called as ecological succession. It begins with the primary succession, and then these are the arrows which show you the process of how ecology successes. The change is orderly and sequential, parallel with the changes in the physical environment. All the changes lead finally to a community that is near equilibrium with the environment, and that is called climax community. So during succession, some species colonize an area and their population become more numerous, whereas populations of other species decline and even disappear. The individual transitional communities are also known as seral stages. In the successive seral stages, there is a change in diversity of species of organism, increase in number of species, and total business. Primary succession would mean the succession that starts where no living organism are there, but these could be areas where no living organism ever existed, maybe bare rocks or new water body. Secondary succession would mean that the succession that starts in an area that somehow lost all the living organisms that existed there. So primary succession always occurs in newly cooled lava, bare rocks, newly created pond, reservoir, etc. Then the succession in plants would mean that both hydroc and xeroc successions lead to medium water conditions, and neither too dry nor too wet. Then the nutrient cycle. Nutrient cycle would mean the movement of nutrient element through the various components of an ecosystem. These are two types: gaseous cycle and sedimentary cycle. The reservoir for gaseous type of nutrient, that is nitrogen or carbon, exists in the atmosphere. The reservoir for sedimentary cycle, that is sulfur or phosphorus, in Earth's crust. Environmental factors like soil, moisture, pH, temperature regulate the rate of release of nutrient into the atmosphere. The function of the reservoir is to meet the deficit which occurs due to imbalance in the rate of influx and efflux. Now, my favorite cycle, carbon cycle. So carbon constitutes 49% dry weight of organism. Out of total global carbon, 71% carbon is dissolved in the ocean, and then about 1% is in the atmosphere. About 4 multiplied by 10 is to the power 13 kilograms of carbon is fixed in biosphere by photosynthesis annually. Large amount of carbon returned from atmosphere as CO2 through respiration of producers and consumers. Decomposers also return CO2 to reservoir during decomposing process. Some amount of carbon is lost to sediments and removed from circulation. Burning wood, forest fire, combustion of organic matter, fossil fuel, volcanic activities are additional sources for releasing CO2 to the atmosphere. There are several influences on human influences on carbon cycling, that is rapid deforestation and massive burning of fossil fuel for energy and transport, increased rate of release of CO2 into the atmosphere. The next one is phosphorus cycle. So phosphorus is a major constituent of biological membrane, nucleic acid, and cellular energy transfer, which is also called as ATP. Animal need phosphorus to make shell, bones, and teeth. Reservoir pool of phosphorus is the rock, which contain phosphorus in form of phosphates. During weathering of rock, small amount of phosphates dissolved in soil solution are also absorbed by the roots of plants. Herbivores and other animals obtain organic form of phosphorus from plants. The waste product and dead organism are decomposed by phosphate solubilizing bacteria releasing phosphorus. Then, how does the phosphorus cycle differ from the carbon cycle? You might have this question. There is no respiratory release of phosphorus in the atmosphere, wherein CO2 is released in the atmosphere. Atmospheric inputs of phosphorus through rainfall are much smaller, wherein CO2 are way higher. Gaseous exchange of phosphorus between organism and environment are negligible. I hope this lesson made you clear your doubts. If you've got any further questions, please don't forget to comment below.